The first Catholic Mass in the Philippines was on Easter Sunday of the March 31, 1521, officiated by Father Pedro de Valderrama, and the shore of a town is later named as Limasawa. At the tribe of Southern Leyte, Limasawa dubbed as the birthplace of Roman Catholicism. And the Philippines, landing Philippine shore when Ferdinand Magellan in his European cruise sailed from San Loca de Barrameda for an expedition to search for species. These folks landed on the Philippines after the voyage from other proximate areas on March 28, 1521.
On March 28, 1521, while at the sea, they saw a bonfire which turned out to be Limasawa, where they anchored. Blood compact. The island's sovereign ruler was Raha Sau. When Magellan and comrades set foot on the grounds of Limasawa, he befriended the Raha together with his brother Raha, Colombo of Butuan. In those days, it was customary among the indigenous and in most of Southeast Asia to seal friendships with a blood compact. On instigations of Magellan, who had heard the Malayan term for its kasi-kasi, the new prince performed the ritual. This was the first recorded blood compact between Filipinos and Spaniards. Gifts were exchanged by the two parties when the celebration had ended.
First Mass. On March 31, 1521, an Easter Sunday, Magellan ordered a Mass to be celebrated, which was officiated by Father Pedro Valderrama, the Andalusian chaplain of the fleet. The only press then, conducted near the shores of the island. The first Holy Mass marked the birth of Roman Catholicism in the Philippines. Colombo and Xiaoyu were the first natives of the archipelago, which was not yet named Philippines, until the expedition of Ruy Lopez de Villalobos in 1543 to attend the Mass among other native inhabitants.
Planting of the cross. In the afternoon of the same day, Magellan instructed his comrades to plant a large wooden cross on the top of the hill overlooking the sea. Magellan's chronicler Antonio Pigafetta, who recorded the event, said, "After the cross was erected in position, each of us repeated a Pater Noster and an Ave Maria, and ordered the cross, and the King Colombo and Xiaoyu did the same. Magellan then took ownership of the islands, where he had landed in the name of King Charles V, which he had named earlier on March 16, Archipelago of Saint Lazarus, because it was the day of the saint when the Armada reached the archipelago.
Proclamation of the National Shrine on June 19, 1960, called the Limasawa Law, was enacted without being signed by the President of the Philippines. The legislative flat declared the site in Magallanes, Limasawa Islands, in the province of Leyte. When the first Mass in the Philippines was held, is the Haribi declared a national shrine to commemorate the birth of Christianity.
Magallanes is east of the island of Limasawa. In 1984, Imelda Marcos had a multi-million peso shrine of the first Holy Mass built, an edifice made of steel, bricks, and polished concrete and erected on top of a hill overlooking Barangay Magallanes, Limasawa. A super typhoon completely wiped this out just a few months later. Another shrine was inaugurated in 2005. Limasaua celebrate the historic and religious coming of the Spaniards every March 31 with a cultural presentation and anniversary program dubbed as Sinugdan, meaning beginning.
March 16, 1521, the arrival of the Magellan's expedition in the Philippines, bringing with them the sword and the cross. They first set foot in Homonhon Sama in search of food and fresh water so they could continue on with their voyage to the Moluccas. At the start, they befriended some of the native chiefs who were receptive to the Christian faith that was introduced to them. April 14, 1521, the first baptism in Cebu from the accounts of Antonio Pigafetta, Magellan's voyage chronicler. Pedro de Valderrama baptized about 800 Cebuanos on the very first day. This included Raha Humabon of Cebu and his wife, Humimay. As a baptism gift, he received an image at the Santo Niño. April 21, 1521, Magellan's cross planted in Cebu marked the birth of Christianity in the land.
The ships were sprinkled with the mass holy water and mass began said by chaplain Father Pedro de Villarama Colombo Xavi, and their followers observed mass alongside the Spanish at the evaluation artillery of the three ships simultaneously fired. It was pageantry designed to impress the natives who were described as also venerating the cross with the caveat that Enrique de Malacca, the translator, probably could not explain how bread and wine were transformed to flesh and blood. After Mass, the crowd was treated to a fencing exhibition in the afternoon as a cross was carried and placed at the summit of the highest nearby mountain. Antonio Pigata, chronicle of the Magellan expedition, identified the place as Masbua.
Limasaua is famous as it is believed to be the site of the first Mass in Philippine soil, officiated on Easter Sunday of March 31, 1521, by Father Pedro de Valderrama under the fleet of Ferdinand Magellan.
Early accounts, mainly by prayers, relying on available writings and on traditions, reported the first Mass as being held in Butuan, Agusan del Norte, specifically on an island called Masao. The 1734 Murillo Velarde map, for example, indicates the first land sighting as Surigao, from where the expeditions headed north to Dinagat and Limasaua, then south to Butuan, back north to Limasaua, from where they slayed along the west coast of Leyte, the Camotes Islands, and down to Sugbu and Mactan. In 1872, a marker was raised in Agusan, and the place where the first Mass was believed to have been held, with change in the place name and in course of the Agusan River. The marker's location is now in the town of Magellan, across the river from Butuan City.
The official declaration is that Mazawa is the island across from the southern tip of Leyte, named Limasaua. This is hotly disputed by those who insist that Masawa is in Butuan and is the true site of the first Mass. They question the reasoning and the accuracy of the studies leading to the decision favoring Limasaua.
Today in Filipino history, 14 April 1521, the first Christian Baptist in Filipinas was officiated in Cebu by Pedro de Valderrama, the chaplain of the expedition led by Fernando de Magallanes. Ferdinand Magellan
and was documented by Antonio Pigafetta. According to Pigafetta, about 800 natives, including Cebu chieftain Raha Humabon and his wife Hara Humamay, were baptized Humabon and Humamay, who received the Christian name Carlos and Juana, respectively, were said to be the first embrace Christianity. In effect, this date is when our indigenous pagan initiators started to become Filipinos.
Pedro Valderrama was a Spanish friar and the chaplain of Magellan who conducted the first Catholic Mass in the Philippines. Magellan ordered the Mass to be celebrated, which took place on 31st of March 1521, on Easter Sunday. The location of the first Mass is commonly believed to have been in Limasaua, Leyte, although the precise location is still disputed. Antonio Pigafetta, James de Mafra, Francisco Albo, and Martin de Ayamonte witnessed the Mass. Raja Colombo and Raja Siago were the first natives to attend the Mass, along with other Mazawa inhabitants, together with visitors from Butuan.
Spanish era. Starting in 16th century, Spanish explorers and setttlers arrived in the Philippines with two major goals: to participate in the spice trade, which was previously donated by Portugal, and to evangelize to nearby civilization such as China. While many historians claim that the first Mass in the island was held on Easter Sunday of 1521 on the small island near the present-day Bukidnon province. The exact location to dispute a verified Mass was held at the island port of Masua on Easter Sunday, March 31, 1521, as recorded by the Venetian diarist Antonio Pigafetta, who traveled to the island in 1521 on the Spanish expedition led by Ferdinand Magellan.
What is the importance of First Mass in the Philippines? You know why it is important, why the whole of Christianity must know where really is the First Mass was really held in the Philippines, because it was in that Mass that paved the way of the spread of Christianity not only in our country but in Asia.
Reading in Philippine history. The first documented Catholic Mass in the Philippines was held on March 31, 1521. Easter Sunday. It was conducted by Father Pedro de Valderrama of Ferdinand Magellan expedition along shores of what was referred to in Journal of Antonio Pigafetta as Mazoa. Today, this site is widely believed by many historians and the government to be Limasaua, off the tip of southern Leyte. However, until at least the 19th century, the prevailing belief was that the first Mass was held in Butuan. This belief is maintained by some, who assert that the first Mass was instead held at Masua, Butuan.
To end the conflict for the issue about the first Mass, the National Historical Commission of the Philippine Hispanic adopted the recommendation and unanimously agreed that evidence and arguments presented by the two Butuan advocates are not sufficient and convincing enough to warrant to repeal or reversal of ruling in the case by the National Historical Institution. It is further illustrated by the evidence that it was only after 22 years and 1543 when a Spanish expedition led by Ruy Lopez de Villabos landed in the Mindanao. 426 to 1521, the Battle of Macanagan, used this life and tragic encounter with the troops of Raja Lapu-Lapu of Macnan. The expedition left the Philippines in May 1, 1521 under the leadership of Juan Sebastian de Elcano, who served on the Moluccas to sail west and finally get back to Spain on board. To ship Victoria, this is the only ship of the original kind They survived to voyage those becoming the first ship of circumnavigate in the globe.
1565 The Legazpi Expedition. In February 1565, 44 years after the death of Magellan, an expedition coming from Mexico or New Spain, led by Miguel Lopez de Legazpi, reached the Philippines. Among those on board were from Andres de Urdaneta, spiritual advisor, and 6 other Augustinian missionaries. Eventually, other religious orders such as the Franciscans, Jesuit, Dominicans, and Augustinian Recollects followed for the intensive Christianization process of the islands. Over the years, through the dedication and heroic sacrifices of other missionaries from around the world, the Christian faith continued to prosper. To date, the Philippines, with a population of approximately 110 million, is the only nation in the Asia that is predominantly Christian, 92% of which 86% are Roman Catholics.